13th, 2026. Although this might be uploaded by the 14th, depending how long it takes me to get this done. But anyways, this is part 2 for when they say peace and safety, then sudden destruction come upon them. I'm going to use a lot of the same slides from my first video, but I took out several slides as well, and a lot of new information. I got to make a part 2 because the amount of evidence that I'm showing towards June 16th, as well as another date, is overwhelming. It's almost like I'm decoding something that already happened. So peace and safety equals 73. From Trump's inauguration, it's 73 weeks with the end date included to his birthday, or without his birthday, to June 15th. For when they say the whole Bible verse, right? The whole Bible verse right here sums to 511 reduction. From Trump's inauguration, before it was weeks, now it's days, 511 to his birthday, or June 15th, with or without the date. So before I just focused more on June 15th, but now I want to talk also, it could be his birthday, because they're saying in the news, U.S. Iran expected to electronically sign an agreement to end war Sunday. It's interesting that they would do it electronically. There's no verification. There's no proof of showing the other party or whoever, both parties signing an agreement. It could be, something could happen like the very next day that I'm saying, and one side says they signed the agreement and the other side said, no, we didn't. Something like that. There's no photos or video proof. So then sudden destruction come upon them. And I'm looking at that for to be June 16th. Whether a deal is signed the 14th or 15th, we're looking at the 16th. I mentioned before, Trump is the 45th, 47th president, and that is the 616 prime number. And now, the supreme leader of Iran that the U.S. and Israel killed, well, his age in weeks will be the 45th, 47th week of his age. Right now it still is, but until June 16th will be the last day. So, Trump renamed the Department of Defense, the Department of War. Another slide a lot of these slides are the same, but I got so many more. These slides are important, so I'm going to go over them again, because he renamed the Department of Defense to Department of War 9 months and 11 days prior to June 16th. We have this 9/11 connection with World War I, World War II. I mean, the U.S. entering into World War I, I should say. And we have a 322 Skull and Bones connection to Hung Chau, Secretary of Navy, United States Secretary of Navy, and 20,137 days. By the way, this is with the dates reversed. Remember, I talk about that method, reversing the dates. Most people wouldn't see this connecting, looking forward. But his birthday is August 3rd, 1971. You can see I keep the same years and I just reverse the dates. And now we're left with the 2137, which is the 322 prime number. I know this is relevant because it connects. I didn't show it in my other video, but it connects to the U.S. Navy being founded, 322 connection. And other people wouldn't see this as a Skull and Bones connection. But since I've been looking at this, intensely, the number connections with the Skull and Bones, I know to look for a 1, 3, and multiple 2s in any order. Just as Bin Laden's birth date to 9/11 was 2322 weeks and 2 days old, right? And that was a big Skull and Bones ritual. So there we go. We got the connection with the Secretary of Navy. We got the connection with the United States Navy. And we have this eclipse connection, the Skull and Bones eclipse, the 2017 eclipse. 3222. By the way, this had a 9/11 connection, this eclipse, to 9/11/01. I forget the exact connection, but it was something like, what was it, like 191 months and 10 days or 11 days, I believe. And we have the 322 connection to the founder of the World Economic Forum, Klaus Schwab, his birth, and the date the World Economic Forum was founded. So, get a big event, then you get something happening in the economy, right? And Perlman was performing a magic mind-reading trick. And Perlman, like Pearl Harbor, was like a surprise attack. He just started trying to run into the room with a gun. And this is 333 days from Olof Perlman's birthday. And as I showed in my other slide, here it is. 1 day off from being the 3330 prime number from Pearl Harbor taking place. We have the 333 connection to Olof Perlman and Pearl Harbor. So using the rule of Colel, you can be 1 day off. I don't use it very often, but I think it's relevant, because any other day it wouldn't connect with the 333 connection to both Olof Perlman and Pearl Harbor. And what do you know, guys? A Skull and Bones connection to when the movie Pearl Harbor released. And this released just before 9/11 happened in 2001. So with the 333 connection, the HMS Trump, King Charles gifts HMS Trump Belle to President Trump. And this HMS Trump, it was a British submarine, war submarine. It had the letter P, the 16th letter. And by the way, that'll be relevant later in the video. The number 16. 16th letter P and 333. And this date will be exactly 30,033 days after the HMS Trump launched. So I'm going to get to some new slides. I showed you guys a couple of them already, and I talked about that Trump was born exactly 333 days after the Trinity test. So the Trinity test was the first atomic bomb tested at 529. There's so many 23 connections that I talked about before, and 529 is 23 times 23. 9/11 had 23 code. June 11th was the start of the 23rd World Cup with 203 days remaining in the year. And June 16th, the day we're looking at, has 23 numerology. Both Trump and Bush born 22 or 23 days apart. And 1946 is 23 plus 23. So we just had an incident, a chemical tank explosion, a rupture, killing 11 people. And that happened on May 26, a date with numerology of 23. Happened in Washington. Then we had the Blue Origin rocket exploding on May 28th, a date numerology of 23. Then on June 11th, which was the start of the 23rd World Cup with 203 days remaining, we had the Pentagon on lockdown, evacuating due to hazardous material incident, which proved to be false, but still, it was in the news and it happened. And George Bush read Psalm 23 on 9/11, and 23 years and 203 days to June 16th from the Homeland Security Act, right? He created this after 9/11. We got the double 23 connection. So I got to talk about the World Cup now, because it connects with my June 16th date. There's too many things going on with the World Cup. It's a 23rd World Cup with 203 days remaining. We had all these 23 connections to things happening. And on a soccer ball, there's hexagons and pentagons on it. And that was the same day that the Pentagon was on lockdown due to So I'm showing this. I'm just showing you. I'm taking it straight from Decoding with Cody, because there's things in here that line up perfectly with my date. The letters D and A are right here. DNA. So they're showing a pentagon here at the opening ceremonies in Canada, and a hexagon here, right? 6 and 5 sides. DNA. And as he pointed out, I'm taking it straight from his video, the pentahexa DNA relates to the geometric arrangement of molecules. It has to do with the genes, the DNA. And DNA has 23 pairs of chromosomes. So that means there's a total of 46 chromosomes, right? And the last 9/11, as I pointed out, I think it's all connected. To Bush, who had the birthday in 1946. Now you got the Trump, his birthday in 1946. So, like, just as I said, 9/11 had a connection to the number 23. And it's something to do with all this, with the DNA. And so a soccer ball, as I said, has pentagons and hexagons, 5-sided and 6 sides. So from the World Cup opening to June 16th, without the end date included, it's 5 days. With the end date included, it's 6 days. Now I got to show this, that straight from Decoding with Cody's video, because it connects. It connects perfectly with number 16, as I'm going to show you guys. And so it was 16 years since these two teams played each other in the World Cup. And the tower is the 16th card, just like this was relevant with 9/11, right? And the guy that scored the first goal wore the number 16. And his last name in all 4 ciphers, the first 4 relevant ciphers, perfect match with the tower. And the first game the United States played on George Bush's birthday. And George Bush was the 41st president. Another slide from Cody, right? And USA won 4-1. Skull and Bones equals 41. This had numerology of 41. And I'm going to show you how this relates to June 16th as well. And in the first game the United States played, number 16 scored on himself. As I showed you, we have a connection to the Navy and the Secretary of Navy with the 322 connection. We have the USS Lincoln, Abraham Lincoln out there, right? Now I'm going to show you all the relevancy to the number 16, because I think something is going to happen relating to the USS Lincoln, because the Lincoln was the 16th president, right? And even Lincoln, his birth, has Skull and Bones connection. He was born with 322 days remaining in the year. And he was born with numerology of 41 and 43. Both Skull and Bones presidents were number 41 and 43, right? George Bush and his dad, right? And so the USS Navy connects to June 16th and June 18th. I believe we might see another event on June 18th. June 16th is 4-1, just like the first president, Skull and Bones president, George Bush, then his son, George Bush, is the 43rd, 4-3. And you can see how the USS Navy has a 322 connection to both June 16th, June 18th. Just like Lincoln had a connection to 41 and 43. And I think we're going to see something connecting to both these dates. And so on 4-1, we had the 322-foot rocket on April 1st. George Bush says, "Fool me once." He said it in real life, and he says it in iPet Goat. And we see next to his finger what looks like a rocket, right? The dunce, even the letter D relates to fourth letter and one finger. But where did George Bush say that? George Bush said that in the 16th state. So the 16th state of Tennessee was founded in June. And now we're looking at June 16th. But look at, from the date that the state was founded, it's 230 years, 0 months, 2 weeks, 2 days. What is that, guys? As I said, I look at 1, 3, multiple 2s for the skull and bones connection. And that's exactly what we have here. So the evidence is overwhelming, and I'm going to show you even more, pointing to June 16th. And George Bush said this in the city of Nashville. Nashville is incorporated on 9/11. From the date that George Bush said, "Fool me once, can't get fooled again," and now we're looking at, April Fools on the Hebrew calendar, June 16th, connects to the 16th state, the day it was founded. It's 285 months. What is 285? It's the 223 composite number. So even from the day that he said it, we have a 322 connection. And George Bush, who was president during 9/11, well, we rebuilt the Trade Center to be the One World Trade Center. Look at the address. The freaking address is 285. It's ridiculous. The evidence is overwhelming connecting to this date. And if you take, I didn't put it on here, but the last date that they have for the observatory opening, the last date for the One World Trade Center, May 29th, 2015, and you have a 9/11/01 inside of here, 9/11/01, right? The end date included from the day this observatory opened. And what I talked about before, we had that Potomac River mid-air collision. So this was at Reagan Airport, right? Where we had the American Eagle, crash into a helicopter at 8:47 p.m. Well, happened at Reagan Airport. Reagan Airport founded on June 16th. And from the date that Reagan died to June 16th is 8,047 days. The time of this crash at Reagan Airport. And if you don't include the end date, guess what, guys? It's 8,046 days. And what is that? Flight 11 struck Tower 1 at 8:46 a.m. And by the way, I didn't put it in here, but this is also 11 days after Reagan's death date. And Reagan's anniversary of his funeral was the day the World Cup happened, the 22nd anniversary that we had the Pentagon on lockdown. I mentioned the anniversary of his death. We just had the NASDAQ in my last video, but I don't have the slide here. We had the NASDAQ dropping 1,200 points. The biggest drop in history. And so now we're looking at 6/16, where the founding date of Reagan Airport, founded in 1941, the year of Pearl Harbor. And this fireman that was shot and killed the day that Trump was shot at 6/11, he was born on June 16th. Now I have to go over this again because it's very important. Revelation 8:11, and the name of the star is called Wormwood. Chernobyl means wormwood, and that was all about a nuclear event, right? And I talked about the connection with Trump and the 333 connecting him to the Trinity test, and we had the 333 connecting to Pearl Harbor and Oz Perlman on June 16th, right? I mentioned before we have this perfect 8/11 connection from the Trinity test, the first nuclear detonation, to June 16th. And if you reverse the dates, you also have 8/11 connection. And you also have a 973 connection, which is the 808 composite number. Nuclear explosion equals 973. And we have the 8/11 connection to the bombing at Hiroshima and Nagasaki to June 16th. And nuclear bomb equals 433. That's the 84th prime. And we have all these 84 connections, right? The 84th anniversary of Pearl Harbor, we had the connection to the founding of our country, 91101 days old. And then 84 days later was the beginning of the war. November 5th, the date of his election, to June 16th, is 84 weeks to Trump and Vance's election. Vance, who was also born in 84, right? Pearl Harbor Day, 12 times 7, 84. Trump's birthday, 14 times 6, 84. Presidential election. Remember I said the election to June 16th is 84 weeks? But he was elected on 11/5. 115 is the 84th composite. He won the 60th election. 84 is the 60th composite number. Even Vance, look at this. Vance, who was born in 1984, to the election. He was 40 years, 3 months, 3 days old. As I said before, 433 is the 84th prime number. And I showed you guys the other date. Remember that it would also make sense that the date that has a 322 connection to the Navy, just like it's 4-3 on the Hebrew calendar. Lincoln had numerology of 41 and 43. We have the USS Lincoln out there. And so June 18th, right, as the 4-3 has the 43 numerology on the Hebrew calendar. Well, we have the 84 connection with Trump as well. He'll be 80 years and 4 days old. And I'm looking at June 23rd. I'll tell you why at the end of the video, but has another 23 connection, 115 days after the beginning of the war, the 84th composite. Washington State equals 84. I don't know if something's going to happen in Washington, but look at these connections to June 18th. Seattle. Seattle was founded on November 13th, 1851 to June 18th, 9110 weeks. Now, 9/11 to June 18th, 297 months, 7 days. How many people died 9/11? 2977. The amount of people died 9/11. And guess what? Seattle was called New York. They named it New York Alki. Now it's called Alki Point, this part of Seattle. So it was called New York. And we have this 9/11 connection to its founding date. And we have the connection to the number of people died from 9/11 to June 18th. So, wow. And now I'm going to show you this. King County. It's named after Martin Luther King, right? Well, Martin Luther King will be 3,037 weeks. You know how we got all these 23 connections? Well, guess what this is? This is the 23rd star number. King equals 23. Martin Luther King equals 83, which is the 23rd prime number. Since we're on the subject of Seattle Slew, again, I wouldn't know about this if it weren't for Jurassic Liars. He's always been talking about the connections with Seattle. Something big is going to happen. He thinks it's going to happen on June 11th. But maybe it will. But I'm looking at this date. I gotta see what I see, and I see these connections to June 18th because Year of the Horse is 888. Seattle Slew will be 8808 days since his death on May 7th, 2002. And guess what happened the day that Seattle Slew died? World Trade Center 7 construction began. May 7th, the day that Seattle Slew died. And speaking of horses, we just had a 16-year-old carriage horse collapse and die. Well, the day that this construction began on World Trade Center 7, look at the zip code. By the way, every trade center has its own zip code. Not one of them has the same zip code. This is the only one that has the 16 connection, 10006. a 16-year-old horse carriage collapses in Central Park carrying passengers. And going back to the beginning of the video, we talked about the 11 victims of the Washington chemical tank rupture, right? Well, what is June 18th? It's 23 days later. And of course, this is a day that has 23 numerology as well. So my last slide, here's my theory, because this is going to be something like the next Pearl Harbor thing. You know how they did it on 9/11. We had buildings 1, 2, and 7 fall. So my theory is day 1, we see an event. Obviously, it's got to start on some day. Then 2 days after day 1, June 18th, which has the Skull and Bones connections with number 43, the USS Navy, the Seattle connections. Then 7 days after day 1, which also has a 23 connection, right? And as I said, this has the 84 connection 115 days after the beginning of the war. And this will be 4/8 on the Hebrew calendar. And this also another Skull and Bones connection because 223 is the 48th prime number. And that's the end of my video. That's the evidence that I got. So to me, it's a lot for an event that hasn't happened yet on a specific day with the Skull and Bones and all the connections that I showed you guys. I will be surprised if nothing happens. But, you know, we're going to wait and see because it matches perfectly with the sudden destruction coming after peace and safety. We'll see if they claim a peace deal is signed. Whether or not, they've been talking about it in the news. So the peace and safety has been put out there overwhelmingly, the peace deal every day, right? So anyways, I will talk to you guys next video. We will see what takes place, and take care.
Over 100,000 incinerated and many more given a death sentence by radiation. For some people outside of the blast zone, life continued almost as normal. But after the attack, nothing in our country would ever be the same again.
British authorities have commenced Operation Sassoon, the mass evacuation of London and surrounding areas. Relocation centres have been set up by the government in the north of England for all those made homeless after the attack. From its temporary base in Manchester, the government have introduced controversial new security measures, as well as ordering a complete restructure of the security services.
Renell! Go!
The World Cup is 100% scripted. Before we dive into it, if you don't know what this picture is behind me, this is the cover of the World Economic Forum for 2026. Here you can see this guy right here in the red shirt kicking a ball for the World Cup. I can't help but notice this looks almost identical to Cristiano Ronaldo doing the exact same kick. Even if you go to the main FIFA World Cup page to buy a jersey, Ronaldo is right there in the center of the page in a red jersey, matching the exact same one I just showed you. That's not convincing enough. This is the ball for the World Cup this year. This right here is the Portugal flag. Perfect timing. Then Ronaldo and President Trump taking a picture together in the White House.
On Earth, Mexico or Portugal.
Belinda starts with the Illuminati Triangle and the Eye of Horus. The world is placed on an Aztec pyramid because it is a global sacrifice, and Shakira embodies the prostitute of Babylon, the woman and charlatan of the apocalypse, who holds the golden cup, the trophy, symbol of abominations. Here carried by the Labubus, who are ancient demons. She sings in duo with Burn a Boy. Everything is in the name. Burn a Boy, direct reference to the sacrifice for Moloch, which we find in the clip of Belinda with the Baphomet, the ground of duality and possession. We all know the Illuminati symbol, but no one talks about the Masonic ruche. The football is a ruche, composed of hexagons. Here, the whole world locked in this ball is the spirit of ruche and the New World Order. Because football was created in a Masonic temple, the queen is the elite who owns the clubs. Players are the drones that execute orders. Moreover, the first goal of this World Cup was scored by Julian Quinones, who openly marks the sign of the Masonic compass. It's exactly like Minions, no proper identity, just a uniform, a number, and obedience to their master.
Shakira, we are ready.
And when you watch football, you participate in the ritual. You lose your identity to become a worker in the rush. They go on doing their job by poking your eyes like this, and you, the fool, enjoy.
All right, guys. W7 sharing with you some footage out of Chile of this mysterious object that you can see here.
Puede que sea el día de la independencia hoy día, weón, para que vean la cagada que se van a enfrentar, weón. O será Goku, weón, que está haciendo la Genkidama, weón. Mira, weón. Voy a darle todo el aumento por los 126, weón.
Now look at the details of this.
Mira, Katy, cómo se ve aquí en la pantalla. Ven a ver, culiao, mira cómo se ve aquí en la pantalla. Es un triángulo, weón, mira.
I caught an eye, as you can see, and I'm going to show you in a second. This is pretty
Es
wild.
un triángulo, weón, mira.
Sácale una foto,
¿Qué
weón,
weón
estoy grabando.
No sé, pues, weón.
Estoy grabando, sacando una foto.
Estoy grabando, weón. Mira, mira.
Está como en alto, sí, la wea, pues.
Sí, pues, weón.
Deja de comer.
And I took this footage here and went through frame by frame. And what I caught, and what you see in the middle image, looks like an eye. I mean, you can see it for what it is. And I also caught it at the 53-second mark at the top of the frame. It was almost out of view, but you could see that there was another, what looks to be an eye shape formation in the frame. This UFO, UAP, whatever you want to dub it here, really interesting. Caught down in Chile. Of course, in the day of AI and all that, it's hard to get a beat on what's real, what's not. Going through the comments and looking through everything connected to this, it looks authentic with no answers. No one mentioned the eye. These guys just filmed this light over on the hillside. You've seen the footage. it was shimmering. And when I slowed it down, I was shocked to see that I thought I was seeing a flower pattern, but then that clearly in the shot right here, it's an eye. It looks dead on an eye. It reminds me of the Eye of Providence, as they call it, the same one off the dollar bill. That's why there's light emanating off around all of it. It's a triangle with an eye, someone looking through from the other side. And it's exactly what this looks like. Pretty crazy. This is a feature that they did not even capture or realize from the video. They just shot the video and put it out there trying to get answers like, what is this? Well, if I get any results, I'll update. Let me know what you guys think. If you've seen anything like it, let me know. Dabu7@yahoo.com. Eyes to the skies.